Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. So, today we're going to talk about the in between. What is actually in between where you are and where you want to be? Because in the coaching world, we talk a lot about where you are now, the struggles that you have, your hidden blocks, where you're stuck or where you're struggling. And then we talk about where you want to be, the new version of yourself, the new life you want to create. So it's the before and the after. But what's in between? What does that look like? I think we talk about this a little bit, but I think we don't talk about it enough because even with the work that I do on myself and with my clients, I notice that sometimes there's what I would call maybe an unrealistic expectation because we do the work together in the coaching relationship, right? So you have weekly meetings, you have support, you have the guidance, you have the accountability, and you're doing the work, and it's weekly and it's regularly, and you're making progress. And for one, what does that look like during the coaching relationship? And then what does it look like after? Or what does it look like if you're not in a coaching relationship and you're doing the self-coaching or you're practicing the tools or you're doing the work on yourself? What is that that's in between? And to set the realistic expectation, the short answer is what it is daily work. To not create these giant leaps, the best way to do it is regular, small steps, regular practice daily, or at least weekly. But the more often you do it, the smaller the exercises, the smaller the work. And so you take smaller steps towards your progress instead of these giant leaps. And I find I do this for myself. I am good about practicing. And then I think kind of like we all are, I feel like I've gotten there, right? I've accomplished something, I've made some progress. And so I feel like I'm there. And then the practice falls by the wayside until I'm like, oh, I've got to re-energize this. I've got to get back to the work. And I think that's just our human nature that we feel like kind of like exercise or diet, right? We feel like it shouldn't always have to be this thing that we do, right? But we have to eat every day. So we either eat these kinds of foods or we eat those kinds of foods or we eat all the kinds of foods, right? But we have to eat every day. And exercise is the same way, right? We don't accomplish our goals or get to whatever our goal is without constant continued practice. And most of that is, right, walking for 20 to 30 minutes a day, not walking for 4 hours one day, right? Doing all the work in one setting and then like, okay, I'm done for the week. And next week I'll go walk another 4 hours. And so when you think of it that way, it's like, oh, that makes sense, right? And even like with your eating protocol, we sometimes will think, oh, just one cheat isn't a big deal. And if we're not tracking it, we've had one little cheat 10 times today, right? How many times did we graze the M&M dish? Or how many times did we, grab whatever was laying on the counter? I've noticed that if there's some unhealthy snacks laying on the counter, I'm more apt to just grab one as I walk by or even open the box or open the bag and help myself to it. And if it's in the pantry, I don't go digging, I don't go looking. And so I'm better about it. But if we're not paying attention, these little things can really add up in a good way or in a bad way. So the in between, whether you're working with a coach or you're doing the work on your own, really is small daily practice. And here's the beauty of it. Just like walking every day, it gets easier, right? It's less effort, you're less out of breath, right? It just gets easier to walk that 20 or 30 minutes or walk your 2 mile route or whatever your kind of set protocol is. If you're lifting weights, it does get easier, right? You build the strength and resistance. It's the exact same thing with the mindset work, with the thought work, because you're retraining your brain. So as you continue to do the work, you're building that resilience. You're building that new reflex. So your brain goes to this instead of that. But our brains are designed for survival first. Always, that is the number one priority. Thank you, right? Thank you, brain, because back in the day, that was a big deal. And even today, if you're walking down a dark alley and your spidey sense goes off, that's excellent, right? You need that reflex. You need that survival instinct to keep you out of traffic, to keep you from driving too fast down the highway, all those things. Designed to be that way. It's great that it is, and we appreciate that. But also, if you're doing thought work and you're doing any of this to grow and progress and become better and more intentional with your life, it is ongoing work, just like how you eat every day and how much you exercise every day. It's just exactly like that. It's daily work because when you stop, your brain is going to go back to survival mode, the negative thinking, right? Because that's its initial instinct. That survival instinct is the strongest instinct. So we do the work regularly so that we just stay on top of it. So the walks are easier every day. So the protocol is easier every day. So the lifting the weights gets easier and we stay strong. We stay sharp. We stay aware. We stay intentional. We stay focused. Because when we don't, we'll revert. It's just exactly what will happen. And so the in-between of where you are and where you want to be is regular work. It's regular practice, it's regular intention, it's regular effort every day. And if you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot. Well, you're already doing this work. You're just doing it on autopilot. You're just doing it without thinking. You're just doing it unintentionally because you're thinking every day. You have thoughts, you have go-to thoughts, you have pre-programmed thoughts. Your mind is working all day, every day. It's just working on autopilot. It's just working with the default programming and it just replays. That's efficient. That's what it knows. That's what it does. But when you're intentional about thinking a certain way, changing your perspective and shifting and being intentional, now it thinks this way. You choose that every day instead of just waking up with whatever your brain decides to give you. And most of our brains are going to give us maybe some anxiety, maybe some worrisome thoughts, maybe some concerns, or just flat out negative thinking. That's what we're going to wake up with if we're not intentional about it. So if we want to be intentional, we wake up and we're like, no, we're not thinking that today. Remember, we're thinking like this. The more you do that, it's just like, okay, every morning I get up and I walk for 20 minutes. Or every morning when I get up, I do this one thing, right? Every morning when we get up, at some point we brush our teeth. We just do that. We don't think, well, I wonder if I should brush my teeth today. It is Wednesday, so, I don't know. Should I brush my teeth? And so it's the exact same thing where we're just intentional about, instead of thinking this way, which we're going to do every day, we're going to think this other way. We're going to think this intentional way. We're going to decide what that is. And the longer span you have in between being intentional about it and not falling off the wagon, not doing the work, not doing the practice, the more work there will be, right? The heavier the weights will feel, the more out of breath you'll be that first mile. Like riding a bike, it'll just come right back to you. Oh yeah, that's why I do this. Because you'll feel differently. You'll show up to your life differently. You'll create different results. You get to choose that. I think what happens is we decide we want that. We do the work and we get to a point where we feel like we should be done, right? And that's a thought. That should be enough. We should be done. And we expect to stay wherever we've gotten to, right? Whatever growth we've created, whatever shifts we've created, we think we're going to stay there. But just like exercise or our eating plan, you don't just stay there no matter what. If you don't keep exercising, you don't keep that. You don't keep that muscle. You don't keep that resilience. You don't just keep it. Same thing with eating. If you're eating healthy, I mean, that's right, the whole yo-yo diet. You eat a certain way and then you stop. And what happens? You don't stay there. You don't stay at that weight, that size, that goal if you don't stay with the eating plan. We convince ourselves or we just tell ourselves, probably more somewhat pre-programmed thinking, or we've acquired this from somewhere. We shouldn't have to always do this, right? We just tell ourselves it should be easier. I should arrive there and stay there, right? I should, all of the shoulds that we tell ourselves. But the reality is the growth, the progress, that comes with daily practice and then maintenance, right? And so if you're just starting your exercise plan, you're in growth, right? You're sore, you're building muscle, you're actually changing and evolving. And then it gets easier. But you don't just stay there without continuing to do the work, continuing the maintenance, continuing whatever plan you have in place for whatever ongoing goals that you have. Even if you've reached your goal, you don't stay there if you stop. And the thought work is exactly the same. It's a daily practice. It's a regular exercise that we need to do to flex that muscle of our brain, to be intentional and decide every day. And I'll be the first to admit I am guilty of this. I expect that I get somewhere and it's like, okay. And for some things, when you process emotions or you have some things that you've got to work through and process through, they do go away, right? You do process it and you do move on from it. And then that one is processed. There's always more, right? There's always something new. There's always another stressor, another source of overwhelm. There's another whatever instance or incident or circumstance. There's always something new that comes up that creates more emotion that we have to process. That is our human existence. That's what life is. Life is lifing. And we have to stay with it. We have to do the work regularly. We have to practice and exercise, do the exercises, and stay with it. So the in between always looks like regular effort, regular practice, and getting good at it, getting more efficient at it, right? Those of us that do regular self-coaching, what that looked like in the beginning might have been, an hour to process this type of thing that now maybe we can do in 15 minutes. And understanding our triggers better, understanding where some of this stuff comes from, what brings it up, what maybe it's made up of, how we react to it, how we respond to it, what work we need to do. Because in the beginning, a lot of that is figuring that out, right? That's that deep exploration. And so that's where having a coach really helps you. It's a lot more efficient to have someone else see those things for ourselves that we can't see for ourselves. And so that helps us do that process more efficiently, more swiftly. But we get better at that. We get better at recognizing it for ourselves. We recognize certain patterns or certain triggers or certain ways that we respond and react. And then we're quicker to understand it. We don't have to dig so deep to figure things out. We know more, right? We've educated ourselves. We've built the awareness. We know where to look and how to look for it and how to find it. And so the process, just like with exercise, where it used to be this big, exhausting, workout, now we can get done in just a matter of minutes. But it doesn't go away. The in-between is always regular practice. It's always being intentional. It's always deciding what we want our brain to do for us. Because it will gladly just process on autopilot. It'll play the old thoughts. It'll bring up all the old negative thinking, thought patterns, programming, right? That's all still there somewhere. All of the experiences of our life, those imprints, those memories, all of that is still part of who we are. And our survival brain will have all of that ready to go at the drop of a dime because that's what it's designed to do. If there's any, right, any inkling of danger or a threat or anything like that, it's going to perceive it as negative to protect you. And so that's where it's going to go. That's what it's designed to do. And so we have to be on top of it always, every day. So if you're like, well, this seems like a lot of work, right? If that's what it feels like as I'm talking about this, just know, again, this is work you're doing already. You're already thinking every day. You're just playing the old record instead of playing a new record without deciding and being intentional about it. And that part of the process can just be a few minutes a day. It can be just a simple reflection at the end of the day, like what did I spend my time thinking about? Where was my focus today? Where was my intention? And did I accomplish the things I wanted to? Did I feel the way I wanted to? Did I experience life the way I wanted to? Because here's the upside to all of this. If you think this feels like, oh, a big burden and a lot of work, the reward is how you get to experience your life. You get to decide what that is. And that should be exciting. That's what makes it worth it. Your experience is different as soon as you do the work, right? This isn't as much like the exercise where it takes you several weeks to see some definition in your muscles to build the strength where it gets easier to lift the weights. You'll experience the feelings of the intentional thoughts right away. That's the benefit. That's the reward for doing the work is your experience changes. And it's not that, okay, I decide this in the morning and this is how it's going to be, and that you don't get an hour in and have some jerkwad cut you off in traffic and it all goes to shambles and you have to start all over. But you know how, and you know what to do, and you know what to expect. You know how to do the work. And between being cut off and getting to work, you've already shifted your perspective and decided this is not going to ruin my day. This is not going to be that thing that is the snowball of my whole entire day. Right? You get to decide that. And you know how, and you know how to shift quickly. So you're shifted before you even get to work. You don't show up all angry and like, guess what happened to me? Right? You don't have to bring that with you. You can just leave it all there. You can do the work in the car on the way because you know how. You're good at it. You've practiced this. It's old hat for you now. And here's the beauty of this work is you'll sometimes do this without even having to be very intentional, like, oh, I don't want this to ruin my day. I need to think differently, right? You might just have compassion for the guy that cut you off and just shift right into compassion and positive thinking, and I hope he has a good day. I'm going to continue on my way. Thankfully, we weren't in an accident, right? You can find all the positive thoughts, and sometimes that'll just happen without you even trying. And that's the goal, right? Is that you're being intentional when you have to, so that in those moments it gets to be that is the new practice. That is your new go-to. That is your new programming. That's how you react. That's how you respond. It's just who you are now. It's the new version of you, right? So how do we get from the old version of you or the current version of you to the new version of you? What's in between? And what does that look like when you get there, right? It isn't always that you've just arrived and ta-da, we're done and all the work is done. It's just not that easy, but it's so worth it. It's what we should be doing and what we want to be doing, just like making the positive choices for our eating protocol and our exercise protocol. It's just what we do to keep our body healthy, our brain healthy, to create the life that we want, where we can walk up the stairs with our grandkids and not be winded, where we can get on the floor and play with them if we want to, right? All of those things we want to be able to do. And the healthy eating and the exercise is what helps us do that. And same thing with our mental health, how we keep our thinking intentional and positive and moving in the direction of the life we want to create for ourselves. So that's what's in between. And it's another decision point, right? You can look at it like, oh, it's this overwhelming amount of things to do. Or you can be like, all right, something something I'm going to do every day. It's going to be my new habit. It's just going to turn into my go-to. I'm going to evolve into the new version of me where this is easy, where this work is just what I do. It's part of who I am. And you just get to decide that. And that's the beauty of all of this. It's all our decision to make. It's our free will to decide how we want to create the life that we want, the freedom to decide and create whatever that is for each and every one of us, because it's different for everyone. And we get to decide what that is and what it looks like. And that's what's in between who you are now and who you want to be. All right. I hope that this was very insightful. I know it's been something that's been on my mind these last few days as I was just thinking about, like, we talk about the before and we talk about the after, and what's in the middle. And there's times even for me where it feels like work and it feels like those same thoughts. I shouldn't have to do this again. I should be there, right? I should have arrived already. I shouldn't have to do this work always. I shouldn't have to journal every day, right? I shouldn't have to redirect my thoughts all the time. I should just be able to stop thinking this negative programming, right? I find myself thinking that same way. And one of my coaches calls it kind of like entitlement thinking, right? Like I should just be entitled to have this. I shouldn't have to do any work to get it. Or I did the work, so I should be entitled to the lasting results forever. And it's just not the way our body and our brain work. And when you understand that and you recognize that, and you're like, okay, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work, and I'm ready to get better at it, right? Because the reality is, if I set the intention of journaling every single day, after a while, I do feel like, oh, I don't feel like I need to do that today. The problem is when I start thinking that way, and then I keep thinking that way until I get to like, oh my gosh, I need to journal today. Right. And so the unraveling can happen, and we get to almost like a breaking point, or that like it gets our attention at that more significant level, as opposed to, okay, I don't need to do it every day, but I do need to do it regularly. I need to do it at least once a week, where I'm just checking in and finding out where my thoughts are and what I'm focusing on, what my intentions are, and being intentional on what I want that to be and deciding what I want my life to look like. And once a week, right? Like that's not even too much to ask. It's certainly less than what you'd have to do if you were exercising and sticking to a eating protocol. We have to eat every single day, right? We also move our body every day. And so when you think of it that way, like there is an ongoing level of maintenance for everything. There's a certain level of activity and certain amount of food. We have to do that every single day. And so directing our thoughts or having intentional thought creation also can be something that we can look at as something that we do every single day. And it can be 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, right? And we can just decide what that is. I hope that this was insightful. I hope you have an amazing week. We are in Thanksgiving week. So have an amazing Thanksgiving and enjoy your either time off, your family time, whatever Thanksgiving looks like for you. And I will catch you next week.